Hey, hi. Welcome to Someone Else's Movie, the original podcast where an actor, writer, director, or nebulous industry figure gives a little love to a movie they didn't make. I'm Norm Wilner, I'm a programmer at TIFF now, and this is the other thing I do. My guest this week is Chrisann Hessing, a documentary filmmaker and impact producer whose first feature, We Will Be Brave, follows the efforts of a group of Toronto men to overcome the challenges of racism, poverty, and patriarchy and dismantle toxic masculinity in their communities. It premiered in Calgary earlier this fall, it just screened in Toronto at the Real Asian Film Festival this past weekend, and it'll be playing the Regent Park Film Festival next week on Friday, November 24th at 9:30 p.m. Tickets are available right now at rpff.ca, and you should check it out. Chrisann chose What We Do in the Shadows, Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi's delightful 2014 comedy in which the pair play extremely uncool vampires in Wellington, New Zealand, living with two other undead flatmates and spending far more time than seems healthy trying to get into an exclusive ball for the city's supernatural underworld, and eventually admitting that even if one is a terrifying creature of the night, one still has to do the dishes if one's name comes up on the chore wheel. This is Someone Else's Movie.
Well, I mean, to be quite literal, it's one of the very few digital downloads that I have in my library. I don't often download like buy movies and keep them in my digital library, but it's because I know it's something I can come back to every single time, and there is a guaranteed laugh. As a documentary filmmaker, it's like elevated because what they did with that film is just genre bending, and so much, I don't know, it's got a lot of like heart to it for being a film about vampire roommates. And yeah, I mean, guaranteed laugh, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's so much fun. It's one of those things that I never saw with an audience and regret. There's so many. Oh, you too? Yeah.
Me too.
I think it must have been a Vimeo link or something. It was before the TIFF. It was a Midnight Madness film, and I watched it alone on a screener in late August and laughed so loud I scared the dog. It does have, it has maybe my favorite line delivery from Jermaine Clement in anything, which is the sandwich joke, which I am not going to spoil for people who haven't seen it yet.
Yes, good one.
And then I got to talk to Jermaine and Stu. They were both here for the film. And it was the day Rob Ford dropped out of the mayoral race in 2014, announcing that he was sick. And so that news broke basically 3 minutes before my interview. I went into the interview talking to the publicists about what had just happened. And Clement's like, what? And I had to explain Rob Ford to Jermaine Clement, which was weirdly enough, not the weirdest time that came up, but it was up there. He just kept like, right. Like he was trying to process it and clearly couldn't. And then I got to talk to Taika. I think it was coming for Imaginative. It was coming back and he came in. It is such a strange, odd little footnote, right? That this tiny project some friends came up with because they were bored and wanted to make a movie together ended up becoming, until the Thor stuff anyway, easily the most successful thing that either of them had ever tried. And they were already really successful. It was just this freak accident of the perfect material, I don't know if it's the last great found footage movie, but it feels like the end of that for something.
Yes, that's so good. The archives, I rewatched it this weekend, which was such a pleasure to do. But I was really like so impressed and blown away by the archives. Looking at that again, I'm like, just from everything to from the the drawings of what they look like and in the outfits to just like the archives of them, in their heydays in the medieval times and things like that. It's just so creative. And yeah, I mean, that sort of attention to detail, I'm like, because, you're really just making up your own archives at that point. It's so much fun.
Yeah. The yes ending of it too. Like just the simple improv trope of run with this.
Yes.
When you introduce fantasy, when you bring in, anything that's impossible, you get to make up your own rules in a way. Mm-hmm. And what's fascinating about that is that when I talked to both Taika and Jermaine during there was a press day for the first season of the show, and in Toronto, and they took a bunch of us out to the production offices and they were saying that Clement's actually really annoying about the rules, the vampire rules. Like
Okay. Yeah.
he's borderline obsessive about them. And when the actors on the show were improvising, as the showrunner, he would just say, "Nope, can't do it," from off camera. Like just they would start talking about what was the one example? It was all the lore from every like not just Dracula, but every he sort of um collated and assembled this internal rule book for himself that he didn't share with the other writers. So every now and then somebody would come up with something, and I think it was Kevin Novak saying that they'd gone swimming or something like that. They just had a dip in a lake or a river, and Clement from off camera goes, "Nope, can't cross running water," and just won't let them do it. And so he's doing all
I
of this
love
in
it.
character, like because his character doesn't, he doesn't really make it into the show for more than a couple of episodes, but watching him do it on screen live in the moment in these long takes, I can just see the gears working in his mind, and it just makes everything so much funnier.
Yeah, and I guess maybe like when you film something in like that sort of documentary format, there's an element to it that must feel real. Like it is a part of you. So I'm not surprised at all of that. And I mean, it was just so natural. The the way they all came into their own characters. I mean, for a film about undead people, it's timeless, really. And it's just yeah. Yeah, those characters.
Yeah, that was the goal. They both said the same thing during the theatrical interviews, which is that the whole joke of it was just like roommates who can't break up, people who have been together for too long, can't
I love
abide the
it.
chore wheel, are
And we all know
frustrated.
what that's like.
Yeah, and frustrated and annoyed by each other to the point where someone so well that you can't stand them. I think is how
Mhm.
one of them put it. I'm not sure
I
who,
love it.
but it's not just roommates, it's relatives, it's marriages, it's all these things where you just recognize deeply human aspects in this preposterous monster behavior, and that makes it
Yes.
even more fun. And then of course the spectacle of all of it, the idea that there are vampire enclaves in Wellington, New Zealand that no one has ever
Yes.
bothered to notice.
Oh my gosh. I love it. Yeah. Yeah, the community and the surrounding world that they built. I mean, it made perfect sense that, it got legs after the film, and, even Wellington Paranormal, the
Yeah.
spinoff there. Oh my gosh. Like watching it again, like the cops in the movie, I'm like, they were scene stealers then. So, to see them, and I watched a couple episodes of Wellington Paranormal. It's so good, like you could further dive into the world and all sorts of magical beings, not just vampires. So it's great.
Yeah, and it makes sense too, because it is the ultimate yes and, right? Like it's the extension of this thing. Well, obviously, if
Yes.
vampires are real, then there must be other things that are real. Although the preciousness somehow of the film only dealing with vampires and their annoyance with werewolves is better to me. Like I like Wellington Paranormal because it is set apart. You don't
Mhm.
have to invest in it the same way as you do in
Yes.
this.
Yeah.
Um, this just has, I mean, it's so much of it is to me is the sweetness of Viago just trying to make everybody get
Yes.
along because
Hmm.
he's still naive and hasn't given up on everything, whereas Vladislav is so over everything, and Deacon is cranky in his way but also more energetic. Just the generational aspect of vampires,
Yeah.
the way that it demonstrates, um, the longer you live, the more jaded you get, the more over it you are, and the more obnoxious you become because you no longer care
Hmm.
whether the people around you will complain about you, because eventually they'll be dead and you'll just be coming up and annoying other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Who better to have an excuse to be jaded than someone who can't die, right? So that's yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so you said you saw it alone. Did you see it after the release? When did you catch it first?
Yeah, oh my gosh, it was like years later. Every around Halloween, I always just try and find some, movies to watch for spooky season.
Sure.
And this one came up, and I was like, how have I not at the time I had not heard of it. And so I watched it because I'm just like, okay, let me just see what it's about. And I watched it all the way through. And then that evening, my partner came home and I was like, you need to watch this now. And I was just like, what? And he, oh my gosh, like he loves it so much. And I love just like seeing people like really laugh a lot when watching a film. Like I just love that effect. And for him, it's the footnote about how Vladislav can never get the face right when he morphs into another creature. And it's just all these like little details, and he's just like in stitches laughing the whole time. But yeah, the first time I watched it, I was like, I can't believe I didn't see this in a theater at like a Midnight Madness kind of event. That would have been so incredible. But I've seen it many, many times since then, and each time feels really good.
Oh my God, it would have killed at Midnight Madness. I mean, I know it did. And it was that part where I was so tired that I'd already seen it. And it's like, I kind of want to see it with a crowd, but it's late and I'm really tired and I have an 8:30 in the morning, and it just didn't happen. And I regret it 10 years later, and I'm still mad at myself. It's such a cheerful film too, right? I mean, that it has a couple of jump scares is almost anomalous, because it doesn't feel like the sort of film that should have anything genuinely frightening in it. But I love that. I love the value of it, that the film crew isn't exactly bulletproof. They're tolerated, but if they get in the way, something's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. And even the music, like the music selection, I had that theme song just in my head now for the last 3 days, and it's really hard to get out of your head. But yeah, it's one of those that, I mean, all the way through, like the just hodgepodge of instruments that they put together to kind of have it sort of evoke that kind of chaotic lifestyle, but still like kind of slapstick. And then absolutely, like with the jump scares is something that I think is like so well done, because you really don't feel it coming, especially when it feels like a comedy for so long, and then they'll like sort of get you in a moment. And I felt the same way about their visual effects too. Like after a while you get used to the the documentary style, like it's very shaky, and like and then you'll see like like some very real visual effects, in the world of vampires and werewolves and all that, and you're like, oh my gosh. And you almost think it's real in that moment, because it blends so seamless. But I mean, such a great subtle way of putting all those elements together, for sure.
Yeah, it's that thing where if they weren't so talented, it would be less seamless. But they know how to frame a scene, they know how to pace the sense of the trickery that's going on. It invites you in further, I think, rather than pushing you away. There's just this sense of play throughout the entire thing. And it's part of it is, I think part of it is the sort of the gentle nature of the improv, the way things sort of spin out in these circles, like expanding, I don't know, like concentric circles of jokes almost. I don't know how else to explain it, but the little throwaway that Stu is the only person who can work a computer because he grew up with them is one thing, but also the idea that every vampire only knows as much as they knew before they were turned keeps paying off.
Yeah, for sure.
It makes the chore wheel make sense retroactively because they can all understand a wheel with an arrow on it, but anything more complicated than that is going to throw them.
Yeah, and I have to say, so it really brought me back to my days in film school, because when I went to film school more than 10 years ago now, the thing that everyone wanted to make at the time was a mockumentary. And I mean, none of us could do it well, but like you said, what they nailed with the pacing and the room for improv in this movie, it in many ways it feels like the the film school project that made it. And I mean, it was fantastic to see that.
I pulled up my interview with Taika from 2015.
I was actually just listening to the RoboCop episode with Jermaine for the show. I'm like, I also love Paul Verhoeven. That's so cool.
We could have gone for another 2 hours. That was the other thing. The way they shot it is the thing that I was trying to find here. They borrowed Peter Jackson's Red cameras. They just
Wow.
reached out, and I mean, they know each other, but yeah, Taika said that he has like 60 of them, and they were trying to actively degrade the image and make it look shittier so people's
Wow.
eyes would be fooled, so you would believe that you were seeing something real rather than something like crystal clear.
Yeah, super cinematic. That's incredible. I saw his name in the special thanks and I was like, oh, I wonder what that was for. Well, now we know.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say that I just remembered talking about my days in film school. At the time, in order to graduate, we needed these electives, and there was a course that was being offered, which was about the study of vampires. And I could not believe that that was even a thing that was out there. But so we had to like in that course, we were watching all these films from about vampires, and sadly I wish I was in that course after this film came out, but I had to watch a lot of presentations on Twilight
Oh
and
God.
Interview with a Vampire and all these things. And so that's why, even coming down to the characters and like the references to history and mythology, and down to like the physical look, but then even just like the personality traits, I was just like, I know who this is from, and what they're trying to like compare this to, and all the different inspirations that they would have gotten each character from, and blending them in such a real humanizing way, which at the time back then we were only seeing vampires as these like godlike creatures, and now it's like, oh no, yeah, they don't do the dishes for 5 years as well,
Yeah.
and things like that. And oh yeah, it was really cool to see the effort into the accuracy, I guess, of the characters that they built.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was the other thing too, is that they were dealing with the idea that if you know you're going to live forever, you're going to put things off, right? Like, you're
Yeah.
just there was a joke in a deleted scene. There was a bit where we see Vladislav's paintings, and he says he's been working on them for 80 years, and he's like he's really getting it, and they're garbage. They're terrible because he just hasn't made the effort. And tomorrow, maybe you'll get around to it.
Oh my gosh, so relevant.
Yeah. Well, and that was Taika's whole thing. He says like his thesis on the film is that it's about the point of living, is that you know you're going to die, that you have limited time, and so you should do at least something, anything other than nothing. And this
Mm-hmm.
is, with that removed, that's what happens. It's just this
Yeah.
this social and spiritual atrophy, is I think how he put it. And in this case, because everybody is still so pompous and louche about it, it's really funny.
Yeah.
It's just really funny to watch people not do stuff and then go out and whine about not being invited to things.
Yeah, I loved even the reference. I felt this was so like even just relevant to now, and how we're glued to our phones and social media and doom scrolling and all that. The scene where Vladislav, I guess, hasn't had a drink in a while, so he was all like desiccated being on the laptop for I don't know how long. And I'm like, wow, sometimes that's how it feels internally when I spend too long on the computer. But it's just the visual of it was, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
super, super accurate.
Well, the context adds it all, right? I mean,
Mhm.
if it's a vampire doing it, we can relate to it without feeling shame,
Very true.
even though
Very
maybe we
true.
should. Maybe we
Mm.
should.
Yeah. I mean, the other part about this film, that really sticks with me, and for myself as a documentary filmmaker, I'm always just trying to really hone in on the humanness of a story, regardless of all the other labels that can, you know, be put on top of that.
Of course.
And I feel like I I was able to like we were able to get a glimpse into something so like a type of character or a type of creature, I guess, that feels very one dimensional, but we're able to see them in such a human way, and not in like a romanticized way, in the type of human side that we all have that we maybe don't want to look at, or acknowledge. So um yeah, I and it's just such a nice quirk to have it be a film about vampires, but yet there's so much humanity to it.
Yeah. I mean, the beauty of any genre fiction is that it lets you things through a prism. But vampires, especially, I think it's because of the idealization. I've always thought, like,
Yeah.
if you picture vampires, the way Stoker wrote them, they're aristocratic, and sure, there's this whole other subtext to Dracula, which is xenophobic and distressing, and about Eastern European immigrants coming to destroy England and everything that was pure about it, which says more about the author than it does about the Eastern European immigrants. But the way that the vampire, the same way the zombie is a template for everything, and the werewolf kind of only goes in one direction. The werewolves are almost more limited because of the clear break between man and monster.
Yeah.
And with a vampire, it's all wrapped up in one thing, but that means you can tilt it into any direction and find a facet that has or hasn't been explored to really dig into. And the thing I love about what we do in the shadows is that it does give you all of them. You have a full-on Nosferatu looking ancient, along with people who seem genuinely sweet and just will also be eating people later in the show.
And making a mess on the carpet.
Yeah, they're all ultimately going to be monsters, but they're apologetic and polite, and the veneer is very important to some of them.
Yeah.
Just as we all know that one person who looks great but is probably a sociopath.
Yeah, we all got our sides, right?
Hey, it's Norm, interrupting my own show to bring you up to speed on Shiny Things, my newsletter about physical media, culture, and the Odd Streaming Project. Last week, I wrote about A24's boutique edition of Kelly Reichardt's Showing Up, and looked at the new 4K restorations of Fargo and Scrooged from Shout and Paramount. Sign up for a 14-day free trial at shiny-things.ghost.io, or find a link at the Semcast Blue Sky account. If you like reading about movies, I like writing about them. Come check it out. The show became its own animal very quickly, which I think is also amazing, and proof of my thesis that you can do anything you want with the vampires, because they kind of replicate the structure with the former monster, the conqueror, Nandor becoming, like, stepping in for Vlad, and the sweeter, nicer one is now the familiar. We have the addition of Guillermo and Nadia, the fact that they added a woman to throw the pomposity into relief while still being as obnoxious as the others, which is also a great get. But also that they bring in Harvey Guillen's character, the familiar, who wants to be a vampire very, very, very badly, to the point where he's spent 10 years actively ignoring all the horrible things vampires do because he aspires to it. I gotta say, I was really concerned that the show would not work. I didn't think you could recapture that magic, and they've come up with something truly wonderful and bizarre in its own right. Have you?
I've seen a bit of it.
Yeah.
I remember, I can't remember the character or the actor's name. What did they call it? The vampire that isn't a vampire, but he still sucks your energy.
Colin Robinson.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. I just remember that at that point, I was like, wow, this is like too close now. I feel like I've had a direct experience in the past. But I mean, I remember thinking that, because we got so much of the world was established, or at least it felt like to me, so much of that world was established through the first film, there was so much more that I was willing to just like take on and like see, like, okay, let's see where this can go, because we already know that like there is this whole community in New Zealand, and like like there's the level or the extent to which people know about vampires or don't, and like the context had sort of already been formulated, that they could get right into the comedy and right into the character storytelling. So yeah, and a full range of other creatures as well, as Wellington Paranormal did.
Yeah. They've had sirens, werewolves, other energy vampires as well, which is a great expanding thing. Every season they seem to find 2 or 3 new mythological characters that they can fold in, but always coming back to the idea of just these pompous twerps that they were sent to conquer the world 300 years ago, and they've just sort of got stuck in their own nonsense. And the more time you spend with them, the richer that nonsense becomes. I really wasn't sure you could sustain it for more than a couple of seasons, and they're into their, I think the next season is season 6 now, and they're just rolling along.
Wow. Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't know it was going for that long. That's amazing. I am really curious now, like what kind of other creatures or characters come across in the show. There must be
Um,
some crossovers even now, I
there
imagine.
were a couple. There's an episode that was the one that they had the press day for, was actually the episode that brings in all the guest star cameo vampires. So
Okay.
oh, it's genius. They, well, spoilers for a 4 or 5 year old episode of the show, but they managed to bring in almost every actor who's played a vampire at some level of fame. So Tilda Swinton, who was a
Oh my
vampire in
gosh.
Only Lovers
What?
Left Alive, shows up, and some of it was shot in Los Angeles instead of Toronto, but they stitched it all together really beautifully. They brought back the characters from the film. They just
Amazing.
appear as part of a vampire tribunal, and it is delightful to
Yeah.
see them. And it was one of those things where in the first season, I don't know if it's still there, but in the first season, there is a portrait of Vladislav, of Jermaine Clement as Vlad,
Okay.
in the Vampire Manor, in the Vampire Residence on Staten Island. They took us on a tour. We got to walk through the sets, and I saw it. It's like, oh, that's nice. So this is the same continuity. And
Mhm.
then someone else said, oh, I don't know about that. And then they're shooting his appearance that day. That was the day that the Jermaine first appears in the show. That
Okay,
night they shot
okay.
his scene, and it's just like, come on, guys, you're just being goofy about this. The idea that now it's like the lore has to be protected from this very silly little show, but
Right.
I guess that's part of it too. It's the game that it plays with the viewer.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, when that scene happens, it is just stunningly weird to see this I mean, Wesley Snipes. I think they got him
Oh my gosh, no
on
way.
webcam or something, but he appears as well, and sort of grumpily, reluctantly, as part of
I
this
love
tribunal,
that.
because as we know, Blade is not a full vampire, and it's just references within
Yes.
references within references, but also building out the world and telling you, well, in this world, vampires not only are real, but they play themselves in movies, so no one thinks they're vampires.
I love that. I mean, yeah, and nowadays everything has this sort of meta mentality to it. So I love to see them. And I think even in the film, in the original film, there was a section where, I think Viago was going to be dressed as Blade, right? And
Yeah.
then so yeah, that's so great. That's some full circle moments.
Yeah, I mean they've just got such an innate sense of what they can and can't do with these characters, and in the film it feels even more specific, obviously because it's such a short window of time that we have with them. But you end up I ended up leaning in to see if I could read the details in the backgrounds and see what's on the
Mm,
fridge and things like that,
hmm
because there's
hmm
clearly thought put into all of this.
Oh
And it's because
yes.
they had no time, right? They just threw this world together, and then that made it even more real somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. And even the costuming, watching it again, I'm like, wow, like the wardrobe, it's got such a specific time period reference and
Yeah.
it spans centuries. So it's, yeah, it was incredible to see that too. And even the difference between the newer vampire and Deacon, and you can see the similarities, but the eras are very different. It just goes to show, like that there's always gonna we're always revamping new things. Oh, anyways, but yes,
Yeah.
we're always like trying to bring things back, and what were once trends are now coming back, and it will continue that way.
Yeah. There's also the acknowledgement that we kind of fix our style at that point. Somebody said this once, and I've never forgotten it. It's your preference for your own personal style will be the clothes you remember feeling your best in. So
Mm.
I don't know what this is about me. I'm in a hoodie right now, but it's cold out.
Yeah.
But people tend to dress a certain way and then stick to it even after maybe they age out of whatever that is. And
Mm.
adolescence continues longer these days, and 40 is the
Yes.
new 60, or 60 is the new 40, whatever you want to, however you want to play
40 could
that.
also be the new 60.
Certainly feels like it sometimes.
Yeah.
But the vampires are just this literalization of it, because they're walking around in the moldering remnants of the clothes they used to think were the height of fashion.
Yeah. I love it. When when the familiar, I forget her name now, but when she goes to the the cleaners and with all the frills, she's like, oh, he's a hemophiliac, my husband,
That's right.
Oh gosh, it's too good.
Endlessly
Yeah.
coming up with excuses, and terrible excuses. That's the other thing
It's
too.
so
Like,
terrible. Yeah.
there's no point in believing any of these excuses. They're all patently ridiculous.
Yeah. And I always loved how they would, and how many times they were able to end a scene with the character like sort of making that last minute eye contact with the camera, like the Office style, but it still hits like every time, and even though we've seen that so much with other mockumentary type things, like it just shows that like if the context around that secret eye exchange is good enough, like it will just hit the joke all the way home.
Oh, absolutely.
So good.
It was
Yeah.
it's the sense to me that when it's Viago, it's just the feeling that he's apologizing to the crew. That,
Yes.
clearly it never comes up, but this was his idea. He wanted to do something to connect to people. He's a little bit lonely and looking for new friends and can't admit it. It's a world inside of those little moments that just feels like
absolutely.
It's caught by the camera.
Absolutely. There's like an intimacy, right? It's incredible.
Yeah. He also said, or Taika also said, that he based the role on his mother more than anything else. That he's just the way growing up, she'd always make me do housework and do the dishes and keep a really clean house. And that was his focus, that and wearing frilly shirts. He just wanted to do this in a movie, and no one had given him the opportunity.
I love it. You make your own opportunities.
Yeah.
Love that.
And then he's currently playing Blackbeard on Our Flag Needs Death, where, he's nothing but old burned frilly shirts.
Yeah, it's elevated. It's the next level for sure. Yeah.
The frilly shirt obsessions of someone will write a thesis on this, and we'll all have to deal with it.
Oh man, the rain is coming down.
Yeah,
really hard.
I heard thunder here.
Yeah, so, I definitely heard some. It's good. I wish this episode would come out, and if we were a couple weeks back in spooky season, Halloween, like even the weather is like giving us the full the full effect. I have like a candle lit and everything. It's like very moody in here. Love it.
The podcast usually wraps with a pivot into the guest's work, and I've been having trouble figuring out how to get there from here, because you have made this really serious-minded. I mean, there is a link, but it feels like it might just be insulting, and I don't mean it to be. But you've made a film, and I'll set this up in the intro, so don't worry about that. But you've made a film about men trying to find a more positive way to be men effectively, or to have to live with a masculine image. And when I was trying to come up with anything in this movie that might key in on that, all I could come up with were the werewolves, and that seems unfair.
Okay, you know what? That makes sense. Like, oh my gosh, and even just like the werewolves and the alpha male, like just watching it, the scenes in the credits of what we do in the shadows is just brilliance all the way till the end. But anyways, I mean, I guess for me, like what ended up, I mean, I just love talking about the movie is one thing, but the thing that I said before, that about the humanity side of it, and that I think that's really, with the film that I am now releasing, I'm just trying to build empathy, and I'm just trying to show individuals as humans, and not so much like, and yeah, just show everything that they need, that they can offer, and without the expectations or the labels of what being a man has been traditionally seen as. And I guess I could always really connect to the theme of being othered, especially as men in this collective. They can be seen that way because from their respective communities, they, in many cases, they are the only one that is tapping into their emotions that they know of, the only one that cares to do the hard work to heal. And as much as doing that healing work can get you on a path to be better for yourself and for everyone around you, that journey is often lonely and can't really be done without community around you and in community. And I mean, it could be kind of a stretch, but that's really elements that I see in this movie, in what we do in the shadows. It's about, you know, how life can be lonely sometimes, and you may not know where you're going or if you'll get there, but what matters is who you're with along the journey and how you can support each other through those ups and downs. I don't know, maybe that's cheesy, but and this could also be just because I'm also, you know, now very focused in the film and tuned in into the film and the community that I made it with. But yeah, those are the elements, the connections that I see.
I think so. I mean, it's pulling on real things to land the jokes, right? I mean, you have to ground these things in something that's tactile for the audience to grasp onto. And the sense of disconnection and lack of community, certainly 10 years ago, I think it was there, but I think it's even more profound now that we're splintering further and further and further. And the werewolves do come back in the show, and there is something genuinely sweet about them trying to figure out where they belong, and the show trying to figure out where they belong in this larger canvas that they've built for themselves. But the metaphor is kind of unmissable, really. Like just there is this ongoing question, and it's in your film very clearly, very concretely, about where you belong if you want to be better. I think better is the right word, isn't it?
I would say so. You know, we're like, the path is only to become better, right? Better than we were yesterday, better than whatever we had holding us back. And so, yeah, I'd say better is fine. We had our world premiere for the film in Calgary. We're going to be screening at the Regent Park Film Festival in Toronto on November 24th.
And will there be members of the good guys? Will people be there?
Yeah. So we have all the good guys are going to be in attendance for the Toronto screenings, and you know, we look at this as really just the beginning. The work that they're doing, it continues, and they need more support than ever to, you know, really continue doing that work, the community work, and fostering healing spaces for men and racialized men. So, you know, for us, the film coming out is really almost like the first step, because we got big plans for an impact campaign with the film to take the guys outside of Toronto and to be able to connect with more men and men's groups across Canada, and really showcase the power of art in healing. We're looking forward to it. Yeah.
How was Calgary? What was the reception like?
It was good. I mean, we had done some, because it's not our like hometown and we didn't have as many connections. It wasn't as big of a screening, but it was the first. And for a film like this, that, you know, sometimes it can feel quite scary to release a film like this in these times. But there was a lot of very warm reception from the audience. A lot of like people sharing their own stories. And, you know, I was like, okay, wow, if a film like this can open the door for folks wanting to tap into their own emotions and their own healing, then, you know, there's so much more that we can do with a film like this. So with Toronto, it's going to be interesting because we have, you know, all the guys present too. And they're all, you know, making waves in their own respect in the different arts fields that they're in. And yeah, we'll see how it goes.
My thanks to Chrisann Hessing, whose new documentary We Will Be Brave screens next Friday, November 24th at the Regent Park Film Festival. Thanks also to Angie Power. She knows what she did. You can follow Chrisann on Instagram at Chrisann20, ChrisAnnN20, and yes, that's 3 N's. And you can find What We Do in the Shadows in a special edition Blu-ray from Paramount Home Entertainment. It's also streaming on Hollywood Suite in Canada and available to rent or buy on various VOD services in the US and Canada. You can find me on Blue Sky at Norm Wilner, and you can find this podcast there at Semcast, SEMcast, and on the web at someoneelsesmovie.com. The first year of the show is still available for just $20 at payhip.com/semcast. That's the first 52 episodes of someone else's movie, 44 of which aren't currently available anywhere else. And check out my newsletter, Shiny Things, at shiny-things.ghost.io. I think you'll enjoy it. Our theme song is by The Last Year. If you like it, or this show in general, please say so. Leave a review wherever you've been listening. Every little bit helps, it truly does. And check out the other shows on the Frequency Podcast Network while you're doing that. Stay safe, watch movies, wear a mask if you go out, get the new booster when you can. I'll see you next week.